Hi there, it's Kute here, sending you big love wherever you are right now. How do you stop being overwhelmed and feeling reactive to your external circumstance and people around you? And how do you truly manage your mind? In our culture today, we have so much external stimulus. We are so stimulated by social media and distractions and media and friends and people, and so we're often so busy that it can be overwhelming with all the things that we have to do in our lives, all of the responsibilities that we have. It can sometimes be overwhelming. Overwhelm often occurs when your mind starts going all over the place. Have you noticed? Overwhelm often occurs when you project into the future, you go into the future, you start creating a negative future fantasy about the future, all the things that might happen but haven't actually happened yet. Overwhelm also happens when you go into the future and you start thinking about all of the things that you need to do in the future, in the moment right now, and you experience all of the emotion of all of that stuff in this particular moment, even though it hasn't occurred yet. So overwhelm is in the mind, it's not necessarily in reality. And when you're in a state of overwhelm, when you're in a state where you're feeling, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. Have you ever had that experience? So what makes you overwhelmed? Right? Just take a look at what makes you overwhelmed. What are the triggers? When you're in that state of overwhelm, likely in your life, you will make ineffective decisions. Likely in your life, you're going to be reactive. Someone says something, you're going to react. You're not going to necessarily see clearly. So when you're overwhelmed, it's really important to recognize your attention and observe. Here's a key question. To really observe, where is my attention at? Overwhelm, I believe, is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's simply a signal. And if you can start taking control of your attention, realizing your attention has been hijacked from this present moment right here. Your attention has been taken by some external stimulus or some thought somewhere else and is not present in this moment. So ask yourself the question, where is my attention right now? Where is my attention right now? That's a key question, to check in with yourself and ask, where is my attention right now? And you'll notice that your attention is somewhere else. Managing your mind and dealing with overwhelm requires that you bring your attention into this present moment. If your attention is not here, you're going to be floating somewhere else. And if you're floating somewhere else, you will feel overwhelmed. So where is my attention right now? When you notice where your attention is, and you can become conscious and present to your attention, then you can start bringing your awareness back into the moment right here. One of the best ways to do that, once you ask the question, is to take some deep breaths. Because many times, we're not breathing, we're holding our breath. We're holding our breath in some kind of survival pattern. Have you noticed? And that survival tenseness, that survival breath holding pattern creates physiologically a sense of anxiety, which doesn't put you into an expanded state. So bring your attention to the moment through your breath, through your awareness, through your breathing. Connect to this moment, and also one way is to actually connect with your body. One of the things I do in my life is I connect with my body by feeling my body, by touching my body, because quite often one of the ways we go into the future, we often learn, as many times as children, a way of coping with our current reality. If it was painful, maybe it was challenging, maybe it was abusive, maybe it was hurtful, maybe it wasn't quite what we wanted. One of the ways we learn to cope is we check out of our bodies and we go somewhere else. Maybe we were abused as children, maybe we were screamed at. The coping mechanism is to check out of your body and float somewhere else. Float somewhere else, could be in the future, could be in the past, but it's certainly not here in the present. So we learn to disconnect from our bodies, disconnect from the present moment, disconnect from feeling fully right here. It's your ability to be present. It's your ability to be in this moment and deal with what's in this moment to moment, that will determine your capacity for freedom. I believe the more you can be in this moment, the freer you can actually be, and the freer you'll be to handle what's in front of you right now. So that's the first thing, being in the present moment. Also, what I found is one of the things that hijacks our attention are our thoughts. Have you noticed that you have maybe 65, 75,000 thoughts a day? Most of those thoughts are a repetition of yesterday, and many of the thoughts that you might have are not even necessarily yours. Some of those thoughts belong to your parents. Some of those thoughts belong to your grandparents. Some of those thoughts belong to your culture. So we're constantly being bombarded with our own thoughts. And one of the ways we live a limited lives, one of the ways we often experience suffering in a given moment within ourselves is that we are constantly buying into the thoughts. We're buying into the mind. We're buying into the thoughts that are being generated inside of our mind. What are the thoughts that you're constantly buying? What are the thoughts you're constantly being sold by your mind that you are buying into that is causing you suffering? We often have reoccurring thoughts, I'm not enough, I'll never make it. Reoccurring thoughts of, oh my God, what's going to happen? Reoccurring thoughts of fear, reoccurring self-dialogue, reoccurring stories that you might be playing about yourself. No one's going to like me, I'm unlovable. Here's what I want you to understand. In order to be free, in order to not simply be reactive to life, you must learn to manage your mind. Not to fight your mind, but have a relationship with your mind. Many times we try and fight our mind like that helps. You can't fight your mind. All that does is create more stress, create more anxiety. But to take a step back and to develop a relationship with your mind where you first recognize that you are not the mind. Many times we think that we are the mind, and then we start identifying with ourselves as the mind, and then before you know it, we are spun off somewhere, and the mind takes you because you may be so identified with the mind. Second thing is, you are not your thoughts. We often think that just because a thought is in your mind, we think it's real. Have you noticed? I'm not enough, I'll never make it, this and that, what have you. They're just thoughts. So where do those thoughts exist? Those thoughts aren't necessarily reality, and part of suffering, part of overwhelm, part of anxiety in a given moment, part of feeling reactive, part of not feeling good within ourselves happens because we are the different ways that you might be taking fiction as fact. We often take our thoughts as fact when they may just be fiction. But the moment you take a fiction to be fact, it becomes reality for you in that moment. And in that moment, you are creating your reality, even though it may not be real reality. So be aware, you are not the mind, and just because a thought is in your mind doesn't necessarily make it real. So what's really important is that you understand that you shift your relationship with your mind, just like you know Santa Claus isn't real, right? If Santa Claus knocked on your door, you wouldn't say, oh, it's really Santa. You have a relationship, you have an awareness that Santa Claus isn't real. He's a fictional thing. He's a fictional character. But when you identify with those thoughts about yourself and those stories so tightly that maybe you become so identified, so tightly bound with those stories and those thoughts in that given moment when you're hijacked by it, it can often seem real, right? It can often seem so real, and then you are living inside of a prison of that story. So you must learn to first recognize and shift your relationship. Next, you must also learn to take a step back. To be able to take a step back and to observe your thoughts. Many times we don't observe our thoughts because we're so busy being identified as those thoughts. So if you can start now observing your thoughts. Wow, that's interesting. Like clouds in the sky. Wow, that's an interesting pattern. Wow, that's an interesting thought. I'm not enough. Wow, that's an interesting thought. So rather than attaching to it, rather than identifying it, rather than trying to even get rid of it, to me the key to freedom and peace is not to try and get rid of all your thoughts. Have you ever noticed maybe in meditation you try and get rid of all your thoughts and you go even more crazy? You're more peaceful before you start meditating and then all of a sudden you sat down to meditate thinking you should have no thoughts, and then it drove you crazy. You were more stressful trying to get rid of the thoughts. Trying to get rid of all your thoughts is going to drive you crazy, but when you recognize the true reality of your being, when you recognize the true reality and the true nature of who you are, what you are, then you can start to realize you're not those thoughts, and you can begin to witness those thoughts. You can begin to observe those thoughts, and then you start realizing, wow, if I can observe that thought, if I can observe that story, then I can't be it, because if I'm observing it, I'm not it. And then there's a space that opens up. When you're so identified with the story and the thought, there's no space. Then it has you by the chokehold, and it takes you spiraling down. Observe your mind, observe your thoughts, and you will find a new level of freedom. Observe where your attention is at. Cultivate your relationship to your body and your breath to bring you in the present moment. Know that you are not your stories, you are not your thoughts, that what you are is infinite, what you are is so much more. And when you are in the present moment, it doesn't mean life will just be easy, it might be challenged. It doesn't mean everything is going to flow your way, but it does mean as you're present in the moment, you're not floating in 17 directions or in the past or in the future. All of your potential will be freed up so that you are then that much more able and capable to deal with all of your intention and energy, to deal with the action that's right in front of you. So as you bring yourself into this moment, a key question to ask yourself is, okay, what's the very next action step I now need to take? What's the very next action step that I now need to take that's in front of me right now? Because we're often focusing on the 700 action steps that you need to take in order to manifest the dream. But if you break it down into steps and then you prioritize it and you say, okay, what's the next action step, and focus on the one action step that's in front of you. One step. I believe that a vision, your vision and your dream, no matter how big it is facilitated, is brought about one action at a time, one breath at a time, one choice at a time. And all you can do in one given moment, really fully, with full attention, with full presence, is the one thing that's in front of you. And you can ask yourself, wow, can I do this one action step? And if you focus on that one simple action step, the phone call, the email, the writing one line or a page of your book, just the one thing that's in front of you, usually it's not so overwhelming because you can be present with that one thing. In every given moment, you have a choice. And if you're not present in a given moment, you don't have access to your choice. And so by being fully present in a given moment, you access your power, because your power is in your ability to choose. And life is filled with choices, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. Take that responsibility, my friends. Free yourself and experience bliss and joy right now. Because in this moment, right now, everything is fine. If you enjoyed this video on a blog, I want you to share this with all of your friends, and you'll receive some amazing free gifts and updates in the days, weeks, and months to come. Sending you big love wherever you are. Love now.